This is the Microsoft Cloud Show, episode 90. Today, CJ and I are going to talk about some of the latest Azure, Office 365, and AWS-related news, recorded live August the 5th, 2015.
Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Show, the only place to stay up to date on everything going on in the Microsoft Cloud world, including Windows Azure, Office 365, SharePoint, Exchange, Link, and related technologies. Just the information, no marketing, no BS. I'm Andrew Connell.
And I'm Chris Johnson.
And we're just two dudes telling you how we see it.
Good morning, CJ. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, my friend. It sounds a little bit better than you.
Yeah, well, this is actually, you heard this firsthand yesterday and actually last week, but as the listeners know from last week, because you did a fantastic job hosting the podcast all on your own last week, I'm sure our listeners were a little confused. I did the interview, but you did the lead-in, but you said I was sick and had no voice. But then during the interview, I sounded great.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I guess you recorded that before the show. So, but hey, now listen to you now, and listeners will understand that I wasn't lying out of my rear end when I said you were sick. I mean, you're only just talking again, right? So
yes, exactly. Yeah. So for anybody who missed last week, or the show that came out on August the 4th. So the last week of July or the first week of August, I actually flew over to go speak at a conference at Microsoft and caught some head or chest cold bug on the way over on the plane and got pretty sick. I was on Sunday, got pretty sick on Monday, Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon was barely able to do my session. That was fun. I realized halfway through my session that I forgot to take certain medicine right before the session started. And like 30 minutes into a 70-minute session, I started spiking a fever and having some pretty bad chills. So that was pretty fun to try and get through an Angular session that way.
Yeah, you rocked it, man. You rocked it. It was. I felt for you, dude, because it sucks being in that position and having to just get through it.
Oh yeah, not fun. But yeah. So that evening and then the next day, my voice went to complete hell. And as you can hear, it's not fully back yet. I don't think I'm sick anymore, but my voice has been completely shot. This is the best it's been. I woke up today and you actually have a little bit of, it's not just a loud whisper. It's actually, I think I have a little bit, actually sound pretty good now. I forgot what I sounded like too until I listened to the podcast. It came out last week. I'm like, oh, that's what it's supposed to sound like.
I forgot what I'm supposed to sound like. Yeah, that's good.
So it's been funny as I've been walking around the house, I haven't been talking to anybody or anything. And so my kids, my wife are like, you in a bad mood? I'm like, no, it's every time I talk, I get into a coughing fit. So
yeah, it sucks. Well, hey, it's been a long time, so hopefully you'll get better soon.
Yeah, hope so. I'll be judiciously using the mute button during this podcast. So
perfect. Yeah. Well, we'll understand if you suddenly just go silent.
Oh man. So how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good, thanks. I'm pretty good. I'm actually, we're recording this on a Wednesday morning, as we normally do, and I'm taking a few days off. So taking Wednesday through Friday off. I've got some family in town, and we're going for a bit of a drive and a night away. So it'll be nice.
Oh, good times. Good times.
Good bit of downtime. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I get to be home including this week. I'm actually home for 3 weeks after a pretty brutal travel, personal and work travel over the summer. So I think next place I'm going to be at the SP TechCon conference in August, and just another one too, because by the time this show comes out, we'll be wrapping up the discount thing. But I'm one of the co-chairs actually for a conference called SP Live 360. That's in Orlando in mid-November. And they have a $500 discount for registrations that expires on August the 12th. So we got some killer speakers lined up, the likes of Dan Usher and Matt McDermott. I co-host the SharePoint part of the conference with Matt McDermott. But Matt McDermott, Mark Rackley, Darren Bishop, Paul Schaeflein, tons and tons. I mean, there's a bunch more people that I'm not forgetting, but I just can't list everybody out right now. But great content. And we have held a couple spots open to fill in at the last minute or a month or two early before the show comes out. With Office or SharePoint 2016 related content. So
gotcha. Some
great stuff there. We're going to also have a developer panel and maybe even an end user panel as well. So if you're interested, go check that out. Make sure you go register. $500 off by August 12th.
Nice. Looks like a good show.
Yeah, should be a good show.
Hey, so what should we talk about? We've got some news. We've got some bits and bobs in our notes here. So I think we've got some stuff to get through, right?
Absolutely. So hey, First thing, we have a question here that came in at the end of July.
Oh, yeah. This is a goodie.
Yeah, I've been wanting to jump on this one because this is a bit of a soapbox thing. I think we have a good opinion show coming up soon. I got a pretty big bone to pick with a lot of SharePoint developers. But this kind of, I know you and I talked about it a little bit last week, and I'm working on a blog post to go along with it. So,
oh, it's a goodie. You're cooking up a goodie.
Oh yeah, I might lose some friends on this one, but that's okay. It's controversial. It's good.
Lose some friends and influence people, buddy. You know how to do it.
Hey, why not? So, hey, we got a question submitted by a regular listener, and of course, a regular listener that I regularly screw up your last name on. So this is from, I'll give it a shot again, Greg Ehrenberg.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Yeah, that's my guess.
I hope we're getting that right.
Yeah, Greg, if not, I'm going to blame it on the fact that I have no voice. So that's the reason why. His subject of the question is fully decoupled. Now, here's his question. Quote, with cores and ADAL.js, why do we need the SharePoint add-in model? Will we see REST with the ability to create more SharePoint objects in SharePoint in the future, like workflow, instead of deploying it through no-code solutions? Now, that's end quote. Now, I think that's a great question because I think that today, this is part of the little preview of the bone I have to pick with a bunch of SharePoint developers, is that I think that most people are too focused on doing the traditional SharePoint development that they do today, or that they've done with full trust solutions. And they try to pigeonhole that, or they try and take that square thing and shove it in a circle hole, a square peg and put it in a circle hole, and say, this is how I'm going to do it with the app model, because I can't do it the exact same way with the app model, or the add-in model, that, hey, the add-in model sucks. And you can't do a whole lot of stuff. Now, I think that in my mind, there are 3 different ways of building applications today in the Office platform. We have SharePoint add-ins, we have Office add-ins, and then we also have a way to build just standard applications that will take advantage of SharePoint and or Office 365 through the REST APIs, logging in through Azure AD, being able to use the REST services and such. So I don't think that will we see a REST ability with the ability to create more SharePoint objects in SharePoint in the future. I can't see that. I can't see the future there. But the root of the question is why do we need the SharePoint add-in model? Well, I don't think we do, but let me just qualify that with one thing. You can build anything that you want to build, and you can talk to Office 365 as much as you want with all the different services that they provide and do a ton of really great stuff. Where the add-in model comes into play is really in 2 things. Number 1, if you want an easy deployment model into an existing environment, such as SharePoint or in Word or Excel or Outlook or PowerPoint or any of those Office clients. But then the other part is that deployment model also gives you the ability to take advantage of the store and have the ability to easily sell stuff and to monetize it. If you don't need those 2 things, then yeah, I'd question them. Why do you need the add-in model? But those are 2 pretty big things. So for me today, when I'm building stuff, I rarely use the add-in model unless I'm doing an Office add-in. If I'm doing a SharePoint add-in, I don't use the add-in model because I'm not trying to sell anything into SharePoint. Of the Office add-ins, you need it to get it in there and actually working. It's easier to take advantage of than the SharePoint piece. So that's just my take. You got anything you want to throw in there?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you're saying there. I think I actually wrote a blog post back in July 17th, 2012, which I think summarizes my thoughts still to this day pretty accurately, which is, we'll try and link off to it in the show notes. And it actually references something another blog post that you did about articulating some of the same stuff that you just mentioned. And it's not like, forget the name for a second, forget SharePoint add-ins or app model for a second, whatever you call it doesn't really matter. What I think is important is what I call the plumbing, right? The components of that model that make it up. And I see it as 3 things, right? UX integration, eventing, and data access. Right, it's really those 3 things, right? Data access, by that I mean REST APIs, the ability to call the APIs and get stuff in and out of Office 365. Eventing is being able to, be triggered by events that happen in Office 365. So for things like triggers on lists, for example, or in Exchange. And then the third thing, the first one that I mentioned was UX integration. So just take UX out of there for a second. If you just think about data and events, you could argue that that's just regular old web programming, right? You just got REST APIs and webhooks, things like that. And we've been adding webhooks in Exchange more recently. So, there's more events available in Office 365 than there's ever been before. So those things are just, APIs and services that you could take advantage of, much like any other web platform on the planet. And then then UX is really the only one that you're dependent on the app model for, or the add-in model, in that to hook into certain parts of SharePoint's UI, you've got to deploy using an add-in. And so really, if you're not thinking about extending the user interface of SharePoint or Office, think about the add-in model. If you don't want, you could just call REST APIs and just register for webhooks and things like that. So think about it as a set of plumbing, as a set of components that you could take advantage of. I don't think the words in the, whether you call it the app model or the add-in model or whatever you want to call it, is really that important. But it's those building blocks of your application. Those three areas I think are super important. And so going forward, like if you're not doing UX integration and you have no need to go to build an add-in per se, you're still using parts of the add-in model behind the scenes. You're just calling them direct from your web application. So in a nutshell, I think it's more about the components that make up the model that are important, not what you call it. And you take advantage of the pieces that you need.
Yep, fully agree. So Greg, hope that answers your question. That is actually going to be the subject of another episode that CJ and I'll do that I'm going to go off the handle on in a little bit. So we'll wait for that one though.
Can't wait. That's going to be exciting.
Absolutely. So, all right, man, we got a little bit of news here, news and updates, some stuff from Microsoft, some stuff from Amazon. So you want to do the Microsoft stuff first?
Yeah, sure. One I think is kind of interesting. You're a band user, right?
I am a Microsoft band user. Yes, I have.
Yeah, the Microsoft band, the fitness / sort of health tracking device. They've opened up a little bit more for developers to be able to hook into that. And so recently we saw an announcement around these things they're calling WebTiles, which are basically the ability for developers to sort of provide like an RSS-like feed, I think, using JSON effectively. It's not RSS per se because it's not sort of XML. I think it's a JSON feed. But you can provide sort of a web service feed. That's sort of probably the best way I'd describe it. And your band can sort of subscribe to that and start periodically fetching info from that feed and displaying it on your band. So you could imagine like this could be maybe some sort of line of business system could provide a feed, or some sort of app that you write that sits out on the internet and provides some information, and you want to put the information onto the band. Maybe status updates or bits and bobs like that. You can go do that. There's docs and sample code and things like that about what format the feed's got to be in. It looks pretty straightforward. Yeah, it does. It's pretty slick. I mean, I haven't spent too much time looking at the developer options for the band, but when I saw the WebTile, it's one of those things you kind of look at a little cockeyed and you're like, if it's not data that resides on my phone, then why wouldn't I build a WebTile before I built anything else? I don't need to build anything native. I mean, doesn't it just make sense to have a little icon? I mean, if it's like stock information or stock quotes or weather, that kind of makes sense to have that as a web tile. Yeah, I guess there's limitations, right? There's only certain UI you can have and certain patterns you can show and things like that. But for the most part, it's a good way to get started for sure. Absolutely. And also, sorry, I go back on my statement about RSS. It looks like you can hook in RSS as well, which is nice. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Yeah, so I guess another bit of news that we had is that Power BI has finally gone generally available in Office 365. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah. This is one of those things that, we talked about it 2 times in 2 different episodes on the podcast, but holy crap, man. This is like one of those things that I still don't feel like I've got my arms around. Like someone says, go create a dashboard. I'm like, yeah. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. You and me both, bro. Once I see a dashboard, I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to use this. But it's like, go create a dashboard. I'm like, oh, where do I start? I don't really know. I have some data, and how do I use it? Yeah, so BI in general is kind of my nemesis, right? Because it's one of those things that you're like, oh yeah, BI, it's a bunch of WYSI graphs, right? And then you're like, well, how do I make one? Yeah. How do I make a dashboard? And it's so much, it's almost like, business analysts, how they're sort of they're the layer between normal people and the people that build the solutions, right? It's almost like that, right? In BI, where it's like, I know I want some sort of whizzy dashboard that tells me all just the right information, but I've got no way to sort of translate that into, here's the data, now make something interesting out of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's the same sort of thing for me, right? I know what I want, and I know when I know when I see something, whether it's right or wrong of what I need. But good BI people have this uncanny ability to extract interesting things out of data that mere mortals can't.
Oh yeah, I'm right there with you. It's just it's good charts, good data visualizations are so effective, but coming up with those visualizations, I'm like a monkey beating away on a keyboard.
Yeah.
I can give you the data.
Yeah, exactly. So you go sign up for this, right? You go powerbi.com and it will, place to go get started. You can go start hooking up to various, spreadsheets and files and feeds and things like that. So go give it a shot.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
Let's see. So another one that we had, this is a big win for you guys, that the United States Air Force selected Office 365 for their collaboration and messaging.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. I think it's a pretty big deal for us, right? It's they're talking about for more than 100,000 active civilian and reserve personnel, which is pretty sweet. Actually, one interesting thing I learned about the Air Force, I worked with them many years ago. Apparently, these guys are enormous users of PowerPoint. Like, you know how lots of companies are like enormous users of email? Air Force are enormous users of PowerPoint. Apparently, Microsoft's internal currency is email, right? The company lives and breathes on email. Apparently, the same thing's true for the Air Force with PowerPoint. Everything they do is in PowerPoint because it's always about briefings and always about how they communicate with others. And I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it's a nice one. I think I talked about maybe last week. Did I mention GE? I think GE selected Office 365 as well. 300,000 seats. That was pretty decent win for the platform as well.
Yeah, that is a big win.
There's some good news coming in.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I've got another one here. It's called Chasing History with Microsoft Cloud.
Ooh.
This was a pretty sweet piece of news. There is a organization called North American Eagle, and they're at landspeed.com. They're chasing the land speed record using a converted F-104 fighter jet. They put wheels on it, taken the wings off, ripped out a whole bunch of equipment, put in a whole bunch of other equipment, and are going for the world land speed record.
No way. And
they're using the Azure platform and a bunch of the Microsoft Cloud tools to help them do that with things like Power BI for data visualization and Azure for data crunching and stuff.
Oh my God, that's got. No, wait a minute. Have we seen this vehicle before?
Yeah, they it's the big red tube with jet engines that was on the show floor at Ignite.
Oh, that's right. So we walked into the expo, and it was as you walked in. If you walked straight in, it was just off to your left before you started getting to like the Office 365 booths.
Yeah, exactly. And they were showing people through the vehicle and how it all kind of works and things like that. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh? I think they're trying to hit 763 miles an hour.
Jesus Christ. That's crazy fast.
Yep.
I'd like to do that one day.
Apparently the British currently hold the record, so they're trying to bring the land speed record back to the States.
I think that's a very admirable goal. That's definitely something. The British should not have the speed record there.
Yeah, the British, I'm going to get in trouble with our English friends, but, the English don't do anything fast.
Oh, my God. There goes our English contingent. Oh, boy. Oh, good fun.
Oh, talking about making friends and influencing people, losing friends all over the planet.
Oh, you're burning it down right there. Hey, why don't you tell us about this other news bit that we have here from the Cumulus Cloud company.
Oh, yeah, this was a good one. I thought I read this and I'm biased, right? Like I'm all in on the Microsoft stuff, so it made me chuckle a bit. But so Cumulus Global, who are a Google Apps reseller pioneer, they're one of the first to start reselling Google Apps to various businesses and bits and bobs, has picked up Office 365 as part of its portfolio. And it's just such a great quote from their CEO. It says, it's clear from a market perspective that Microsoft has or is close to closing the gap. And then he goes on to say, I think Microsoft is rising. We're still seeing healthy year-over-year growth in our Google Apps business, but we see broader opportunities and additional opportunities by taking on Microsoft.
Boom, knocked it out of the park.
Wow, that's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
So basically, for those who don't know how this kind of stuff works, there are a bunch of partner companies around the world, hundreds, that resell various services from different providers, right? So Google are one, Microsoft's another. There's loads of different software they can go resell, and they resell it to small businesses, medium businesses, all around the world. Everything from ma and pa sort of corner stores through to, medium-sized law firms, right? Like the whole nine yards. And so they'll go and resell, say, Google Apps or Office 365 to those firms, sell them other bits of software, and then also help them with other services, right, to get their stuff up and running, or maybe implementing some custom bits for them as well. So they're a huge and improve the way we get software into customers' hands. So it's great to see somebody that was so early on in the Google Apps space picking up Office 365 too.
Absolutely. That's pretty cool. There's a pretty good quotes in there too. It's really nice stuff. It's got to be somebody on the marketing side. It's got to be like, how much did it cost for us to do that? So that's our Microsoft news. Let's kind of transition over and let's do a little bit of our AWS stuff, because AWS has got a couple things that have gone GA that are quite interesting, specifically for developers. And there's actually some stuff that's a little more rounding out their offering to compete with Azure. So the first one that they have is one called the API Gateway. It's introduced. This was introduced back in early July. And what this is similar to Azure's API offering.
Yeah, gotcha.
This allows you to create custom APIs that you can publish to AWS. You can monetize them. You can control the rollout of new versions. You can control the access to them. You can even have them wrap additional or existing APIs that AWS offers to be able to make things a little bit more controlled and resell things to your customers. One of the nice things about this is that some of the things that they focused on with this is that it's very scalable, so it can handle any number of requests per second. It's self-service and highly usable. It's highly reliable, allows you to build services that are exceptionally dependable with full control over error handling and customized error responses. It's secure, allowing you to take advantage of the latest AWS authorization mechanisms. It's very performant, allowing you to build services that are globally accessible using their CloudFront product offering for low latency access and data transfer. And the last piece is it's cost effective, allows you to build services that are economical to run with no fixed costs. And it's just pure pay as you go pricing.
Nice. This is kind of interesting because it's a way to, I guess, for want of a better word, facade your API, right? So you build one of these things and it runs, and then you've got to back your API with some sort of back-end service. And they're saying that could either be like with an EC2 compute instance running your app, or it could be with AWS Lambda, which is kind of a more declarative way to get to run stuff, event style. And so this sort of fronts your APIs, right? And then you've got to put something behind it that actually computes the data and spits it back out. But this gives you a way to more closely control your access to your API and the design of it and things like that.
Very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
So another piece that they have that has gone GA, this was announced back at their AWS reInvent conference late last year in 2014. Code Pipeline is a way for you to essentially have a continuous deployment service for your application. So what this thing does is it allows you to very easily have like a continuous integration or continuous deployment of your code for a rapid delivery of your software releases, making it easier to release new things to your users, automates build, tests, release processes to test your code through each of the different stages of deployment, configurable workflow, and very easy to integrate with your existing application. So it's a very much in this DevOps process thing.
Yeah,
I don't think we have something like this in the Azure space. I guess
it would be Visual Studio Online.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
it's probably the closest set of tools to something like this, right?
Yeah,
about build and deploy and in an automated manner.
Yeah, there's some things that you can kind of put pieces together to implement this with Azure, but I don't think that we have an Azure offering that does this. Like you said, I think it's part of the workflow stuff that we get within Visual Studio Online.
Yeah, cool. I mean, there are a ton of tools in this space that, people use to help automate and deploy and do DevOps in an automated fashion.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we got another one. This kind of ties in with Code Pipeline. Another thing that's gone GA that was also announced at reInvent late in 2014. Something called CodeCommit. And what CodeCommit is, this is basically just AWS has private Git hosting. So if you don't want to use something like GitHub, or you don't want to use Bitbucket or Visual Studio Online, AWS has an offering now too that you can have a lot more control over your repositories.
Huh. I wonder why you'd use this over GitHub, right? I guess there's one aspect, which is, having it all in AWS, right? Or something along those lines. I just wonder why you'd choose this over GitHub, for example.
I guess if you have a concern where you don't want, I get a similar instance where you have an issue with hosting your data in the cloud. I mean, if you want to own all your data like on-prem, we don't want to put it in, like, say, your code inside of GitHub, because you're now susceptible to anything that may happen to GitHub or any compromises. And then
I guess if you're an organization and you're comfortable with AWS as being a provider, then you'd want to put your code up there too.
Yeah, I mean, it may make sense. I mean, it's just, I guess, another option, another storefront that you can go through and where you can store your code.
Yeah, it's not too bad, actually. That is a very valid point, right? Because, especially for businesses or enterprises, right? They usually select a particular provider, and that they meet their, regulatory requirements and their security requirements and all that. And once they've chosen them, then, this will make it easier for teams to use Git up in the cloud somewhere.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's pretty cool.
That's a pretty sweet service.
Now, check out this last service that they've just announced. Now, this one's really slick. This is called the AWS Device Farm.
Yeah, this one looks really cool.
Yeah, so this, I've seen other companies do this, but I haven't seen it's always been like little boutiques doing this. So what this is that Amazon or AWS maintains a ton of devices, and like iOS devices, Android devices, Fire OS devices that are Amazon-based tablets and phones and such.
Yeah.
Notably, no Windows-based devices. That's kind of found that interesting. But what you do is you upload your code or your app to the AWS Device Farm, and then you pick the devices and provide the tests, and they will test your app against all the real devices that you've requested, and you get the results within minutes to pinpoint bugs or performance problems. Now, get this. The pricing for this, the pricing is based on the device minutes. So your first 250 device minutes are free.
Nice.
That's pretty slick. Now,
yeah,
it comes with 250 device minutes that are free. After that, you're charged 17 cents per device minute. And as your testing needs grow, you can even opt for the unmetered testing plan, which allows you to do unmetered testing for a flat monthly fee of $250 per device. If you think about it, that could be a significant, if you're a company that does a lot of rollouts of mobile apps, that could be a significant cost savings than having someone manually having to go through and test these different things on the different devices. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, and then if you go take a look at the device list, OMG, man. Have you seen the device list? It's enormous.
It is. It's a ridiculously long list.
And it's got like everything from so within the iPhone family, for example, it's got, say, iPhone 5, right? It's got how many of those? Goodness me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, probably 20 or 30 different iPhone 5 variations on different firmwares, and between the 5 and the 5C, for example. Man, oh man. So it's not just, this stuff's super important, right? Because if you build a native app, you can't test it on every single variation of the firmware for iPhone or every single variation of firmware for a particular iPhone model. And so, you'd have to have hundreds of devices to be able to test it totally reliably, right? This gives a nice scalable way to do it across, tons and tons of different devices.
Yeah, I wonder how they do this. This is I'd love to see how this is actually implemented. You're looking at this and I'm looking at let's just look at the latest iPad, the iPad Air 2.
Yeah.
You can test against 8.1, 8.3, 8.4, 8.1.3. They've got for the iPad mini, they've got multiple OSs of the first gen, the second gen, all the way back to the iPhone 4S. and then 5, 5C, 5S, 6, 6 Plus, the Touch 5th Gen. I mean, that's just the iOS ones. There's a ridiculously long list of all the Android-based devices too, and different carriers. Look at that.
I remember seeing during the Windows Phone development days, when they were first starting out, I remember reading an article about how they were testing the OS on different manufacturers' hardware, and they actually had a robot. So they plugged a device into some sort of test rig, and they had a robot finger that would automate tapping on the screens physically as well.
Wow.
Because they were having to test the OS development, right? So it was like, how big is the finger? How hard's the press? How, where exactly on the screen? Is it half on the screen, half off the screen? There was all these things. And so they were literally using physical fingers, fake fingers, of course, but simulated finger to tap, to do these taps. And it was to test hardware as well as testing the OS on all these different devices. It was pretty sweet. I wonder if they're doing something similar. So I wonder if there's some warehouse that's literally just got thousands of these devices and there's all these robot fingers pushing them. I don't know.
Yeah, and you think about it too. I mean, when that part, you think about what would be involved in actually trying to get like the robots to go through and to automate all that kind of all the manual testing, or the manual touching it and trying to get it to react. But think about how do you actually measure the result of the test? I mean, that to me, that's the hard part because, I mean, Yeah,
I wonder what the test results come back like. Like, what do you, because they're saying these are, that the AWS Device Farm tests on real, non-rooted devices, right? So they're not pwning an iPhone and then dropping some sort of test app on there or something like that. Maybe they are, maybe, I don't know.
That's fascinating though. I mean, I'd love to see that. I mean, do the results come back with a pass or fail, or does it come back with a video that you can actually watch the test fail? Or?
Yeah, maybe video or screenshots or something like that. I don't know. I'd need to dig in and see what they say about that. I can't see anything straight off the bat here that shows an example test plan that comes back.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool offering though, man.
Pretty sweet, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so hey, we got our news done.
Yep.
Now let's have some fun.
Yeah, cool. We got a couple of picks, right?
There you go. Well, you got any picks for me today?
Yeah, I got one. So, like any child, my son is pretty deep into Minecraft. Well, not deep. He likes it, right? And he'll spend any time that we let him playing Minecraft, right? And so being the geeky dad, I was like, oh, well, you really want to be able to play with friends. And we've got to toy around with this idea of a Minecraft server. And then I was like, well, I've got this Raspberry Pi that I want to play around with. And so I looked up, there's a couple of blogs and a couple of articles that we can link to in the show notes called Raspberry Pi Minecraft Server. And so it turns out you can run one of these things on a Raspberry Pi. So I whipped this little guy out of the box. I dropped Raspbian, which is like a fork of Debian for Raspberry Pi. Dropped that on there, ran through some instructions, got Java installed on this thing, and then got this Minecraft server build for Raspberry Pi running on it. And it was pretty straightforward. Let's be fair, it had been years since I've touched Linux, right? Years and years. And it was, I did a bunch of this stuff at university and things, but man, getting back to Linux command lines or things like that and sudoing around the place and downloading stuff. It was super fun, and so now Sam has a little Minecraft server, and we got it up and running, and we're about to invite some friends in for the first time and see how it all goes. So Raspberry Pi Minecraft running was pretty fun, and is a cool little side project that I urge people that like Minecraft to go take a look at. Oh, and I've got another one too. I'm going to break the rules. Instead of just doing one, I'm going to do two. And so my second one is called Big Flashing DevOps Thing, which is pretty cool. Along similar lines around IoT, the Big Flashing DevOps Thing, I listened to the .NET Rocks podcast and I picked this one up. This is pretty cool. This is a dev team, and a guy that wanted to basically build a big flashing light indicating the health status of their DevOps pipe. And so it goes through talking about how to wire one of these things up and monitoring their DevOps pipeline and stuff. And so I'll link off to that in the show notes. But That's pretty sweet. It's basically, a nice way to, he's got some tools in here, a nice way to wire up a big flashing light in your office for when somebody breaks the build.
This is pretty cool.
I like it. He talks about it as the evolution of their DevOps pipe, and ends with this thing called SOARS, which stands for Silvano's Awesome Warning System.
This is really cool. I just clicked through to one of the links and I see they're using a thing called Blinky Tape, which is a RGB LED strip with an integrated controller. So
yeah,
I have a thing outside my office, my home office.
And hooked up to a Raspberry Pi as well.
Yeah, that's what's cool about it. And I have a little device that's called a Busy Light, and it's got a little LED light on the end of it. It's a little stick, and it connects into a computer via USB. But it connects to my link status on an Office 365, and it either changes to green, yellow, or red, or purple based on my status. And I have it mounted in. I have outside my office in my house, I have those kind of dome lights, ceiling lights all around the house. And the one right outside the office, I stuck the Busy Light in it. And so the dome light lights up orange or red or whatever. So my kids can tell, as I work from home, they can tell if I'm on the phone, or if I'm recording and they need to be quiet, or if I'm available and they can come in the office. I've been wanting to kind of create a custom one though, because the one that I have is tied just to the link busy status. And sometimes you don't have something on your calendar, you're focusing and you don't want them to bother you. You don't want to change your link status. And so what I thought about doing was getting a LED strip and putting it on top of the door jamb where you can't see it.
Oh yeah.
Connecting it via a Raspberry Pi, and then having something either on my laptop or on my phone that I could hit, and it would I could flash it to try and get their attention to say, everybody's got to be quiet right now, or something like that.
Yeah, they've got the source code up here if you want to take a look. There's some Python scripts and stuff that run on the Raspberry Pi, which goes and fetches your build pipe status and writes it out to Blinky Tape.
And this is pretty cool. Oh, they even got Blinky Tile. They've got a light sculpture kit if you click through some of these links. This is pretty slick.
Totally nerdy. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
I want to go away for a week just to kind of play with the stuff.
Absolutely.
Oh,
cool bananas. What do you got?
I finished a book recently that I've put right to the top of my list of my favorite book of all time. It's called The Martian. There's a movie coming out at the end of the year, but I had to read the book, and the book was just riveting. I couldn't put it down. So I put a link to it in the show notes. It's by a guy named Andy Weir. And the concept is essentially that, fast forward 15, 20 years from now, we are now going to Mars with, similar to how we did with the Apollo program, we're now doing it with the Ares program. Everybody understands mythology. You understand why it's called Ares. Mm-hmm. And there was an incident where the whole expedition team had to leave, but one guy got left behind. And it's the story of how he made on. I mean, did he survive? Did he was he able to communicate with NASA? Was he able to get home? Were they able to rescue him? It was fascinating. And it's a great mix of very dry humor, a lot of science, a lot of technology, a lot of it was really ingenious. I mean, so the gearhead part of me loved it. The science part of me, I loved it. The space side of me loved it. And then just the dry humor is a trip. And there were times when I'd sit there, I'd be reading the book and I'd laugh out loud. I can't remember the last time I did that. So the movie's coming out later this year. The movie, they've actually casted Matt Damon. Matt Damon. That's the guy that's going to be left behind, which for his humor, it's perfect. But the joke that everyone's saying is that, if you saw Interstellar, they killed Matt Damon in Interstellar. So they have to save him now in The Martian.
I see. Interesting. Yeah, you're not the first person that's told me how good this is. So I have it loaded on my Kindle, and I'm ready to start reading later this afternoon when I head out on vacation.
That's great. I've got a buddy of mine, Dan Usher, who I'm friends with on Facebook. He's putting quotes from the book on his Facebook status every once in a while that are they're epic. And I mean, once you read the book, you see the quote pop up, you just start chuckling when you see Dan's status. So it's really good.
I'm not a huge fiction guy. I find it very hard to read fiction.
Yeah.
But, this one seems to have the right mix of things for me, so I'm going to give it a shot.
It's very believable. I mean, it's very, very believable. There's very little in it that is not. They do a good job. I like the way that the author did it in the sense that when there's things that you can see are about to happen, instead of him taking a lot of time to explain what happened, he essentially just narrates and kind of does third person, says, well, here's what happened.
Right.
Okay, and so my other pick is an article called "Bricking a Mars Probe Before Curiosity."
This is totally glorious.
Oh my God. So you dive into this link, and I swear, if you're a software geek, you're going to dive into this and you will get stuck here for a good 30 minutes of clicking through links.
Yeah.
So the concept here is all about, how NASA and the JPL and the European Space Agency, how over the years they've run into software issues with different probes that they've sent up and how they've dealt with them, and how things have been screwed up, and like how one of the probes that they sent originally to Mars, they accidentally bricked it. And they didn't realize that they had done it, and they went back and looked at the code. And the two first probes that landed on Mars only were supposed to last, I think, 90 days. They ended up lasting for over 6 years, but one of them stopped working after 6 years because when they updated the firmware for a battery charging issue, one of the guys screwed up and he actually overwrote the thing that changes the direction of the antenna. And all of a sudden, when he sent it out there, it stopped being able to communicate back with Earth. So the device was fine. It just couldn't receive any more instructions or communicate with Earth anymore.
Yeah, imagine the meeting. It would be like, "Hey guys, I've got some news. I'm really sorry about this, but I've bricked the rover." And then the next thing you'd hear is this. That'd be the mic drop as he leaves the room.
You imagine just the oh crap moment you would have when you see this. I mean, I've done some crazy stuff with software that I've screwed up in the time. I've dropped a production database before with no backups. But I mean, this one, you've got hundreds of millions of dollars and all these people that are counting on, all of a sudden you turn on and you're like, oh crap.
Oops, my bad.
Some great stories. There's multiple stories in there about different probes and satellites and things that they've sent out that they've had to deal with the software issues and how they've dealt with it. And it's just,
I mean, it must be terrifying doing like firmware updates to those things, right? Because one wrong move and you're cooked, right? I don't know if anybody is listening who works on these kinds of things. Get in touch because we'd love to talk to you. I
would love to talk to you. I love to hear, like, what is your process like? What is your development process like? How do you test? How do you simulate the test? How do you actually simulate on live vehicles, of copies of live vehicles that you have back in the lab to make sure stuff is working? How do you simulate things like in 0G or micro G and all that? I'm fascinated by this challenge that you guys deal with.
Yeah, I'm going to make a reaching statement here, but in some ways it's cloud computing, right? Because it's like, it's the same sort of, it's not the same, it's similar kind of level of you can't go put your finger on it in the server room anymore, right?
Yep.
You can't go in and just sort of give it a 3-finger salute, right?
Yeah.
You can't touch the server, you can't even see it. It's miles away. You don't even know where it is in many cases. Right, you can't just wander up to it and give it a kick when it doesn't work. And same sort of deal, right? You've got to be engineering for things that you've got this tenuous link to, and if you do one wrong move, you're gonna bring it all down.
With one exception, hundreds of millions of dollars were the part that before you hit.
That's true.
Before you did the first deployment.
Yeah, yeah, and here I am thinking firmware updates on my phone are scary.
I know. I pucker up when I'm going to do it. I haven't done the Windows 10 update yet. And I'm like, I see other people having issues. I see something happen. I'm like, I'm in no rush to update.
Yeah, it must be pretty nerve-wracking.
Oh.
Cool bananas, man.
All right, man. I made it through this one with a couple coughing attacks. Hopefully we were able to get to edit all those out. But good show, man.
Yeah, thanks for making it, and die quietly.
I will do my best. Hopefully I'll have more of a voice and less coughing next week. So
nice.
Thanks for sticking with us, everybody.
Cheers.
If you have a question for us, go to microsoftcloudshow.com/questions, where you can submit it as text or record it as a WAV or an MP3 file and provide a link so that we can play your question on the show. Our theme music is an excerpt from Evaporated Eric by Monk Turner, used under Creative Commons. You can subscribe to us in iTunes by searching for the Microsoft Cloud Show or via RSS at microsoftcloudshow.com, where you'll also find a full transcript and show notes of each episode. You can find us on Facebook searching for the Microsoft Cloud Show or on Twitter at MS Cloud Show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.